Welcome back to another Coffee and a Chat. Um, Today is December 1st, 2023, starting a whole new month and coming to the end of another year. And this morning, as the Lord's woke me up before the sun, which is fine with me, I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for what He's done in my life. You know, there was a time when there's been many times in my life when things have been really hard, and I have not felt all that great about who I was or who I am. And this morning, He's reminding me of a time. It was January 8th, actually, 1989. I believe. Was it 89 or 88? It would have been 89, I believe. Anyway, I had really become discouraged. I was struggling with things from my past. I was struggling with things from my present. I was struggling with what felt like a dark, gloomy future. And it was a Sunday, and I may have given this testimony before, but I'm just going to give a small portion of it today because of something I pulled out of my treasure box. And I in here with the Lord. And I have a lot of friends going through a lot of things right now, a lot of heaviness. Gail is struggling with the loss of her son. Last night, some very dear friends of mine, they lost their baby, had a miscarriage again. They're hurting horribly. I have another friend who's having a struggle with an adult child. Yeah, you guys, when we have those kids, the struggles never stop, no matter how old they get. Just like I'm sure our parents' struggles never stop, no matter how old we got. And for some of you, still putting mom and dad through it. We love our children, and we want the best for them. And we can't make somebody see things the way we see it, or do things the way we think they ought to do it, or feel the way we think they ought to feel. And you know, when you have labored over those children, with them growing up, and tried to protect them, and then they become an age that they start making their own decisions and their own choices, and it doesn't always line up with what you'd hoped and dreamed for them. In fact, most of the time it probably doesn't. I remember with my kids, one of the funny little things was how when they each turned 18, one thing all three of them had in common, because they're all very different, different personalities, different paths in life, different feelings and thoughts on things. But one thing they had in common was, as soon as they turned 18, they went and got tattoos. And I remember, each time, they'd come home with their tattoo that they were so proud of and had paid way too much money for, and it hurt and everything. And I always had the same reaction. I spent 18 years trying to protect this body from getting all marked up and scarred up and everything, and you just went out and paid somebody to do it. Yeah. So, there's those tattoos, there's those piercings. And for my kids, when they were hitting that age, that was so popular. And, yeah. we go through our struggles because we have our idea of what we think they should be, yet they're going to make their choice. Well, God has his idea. He has no more than idea. He has plans for us and who we should be and what we can do and they're good plans. They're great things. But he gave us a free will and we still choose to do what we want to do. And January 8th, 1989, on that Sunday morning, I was feeling very distant from God, very cold towards him, in fact. And it was a result of some choices I had made, some things I had decided to do, because I decided to take matters into my own hands, and I was going to make my life better. I was going to fix it. And all I did was create a train wreck. So I was pretty depressed. I wasn't into it. And I just was feeling very defeated. Now, the church I was going to, there wasn't a whole lot going on in that church. The pastor was pretty messed up, involved in some things he shouldn't have been involved in. Didn't know it at the time, and it was a very tiny little church that met in somebody else's building, not a church building, but another building for another group, and it wasn't a godly group at all, so it was a weird feel even for where they were having church. I don't know, that it just seemed like that even that church was just a collection of a lot of bad choices, bad ideas, trying to make something happen, not ever seeking God or talking to him about it. And it was pretty dead. It was pretty dead. But that morning, God was there and he was waiting for me. Had nothing to do with the songs that were sang. Trust me. Had nothing to do with whatever the preacher was saying or how anybody else was acting or treating me or any testimonies given or anything. There just was nothing going on. And I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just telling you that's how it was. And I sat there with my Bible open on my lap so it would look like I was paying attention, but my mind was a million miles away. And what was I going to fix for lunch when we got home? And I got to take care of this, and the laundry's behind, and and just I don't even want to be here, and I hate my life, and I hate who I am, and I've been nothing but a loser my whole life. Nothing good's ever happened to me. Blah, blah. I was in a pit. But like I said, God was there, and he was waiting for me. Because see, that's the way God has this way of parenting us so perfectly. He'll sit there and be quiet while we do our ridiculous things. And then he waits for just the right moment when he knows he's going to get our attention. So right in the midst of all this stuff, he said, Angie, where would you be if you'd never known me? Because one of the things I'd been thinking was, even being a Christian hasn't done me any good. I mean, I was so deep in the pit, I had to look up to see the bottom of the pit. And I was just kind of like, I don't know where I'd be. Maybe a lot better off than I am right now. So he said, let me show you. And he began to flash my life before my eyes, only it was my life minus him. So all those things in my childhood, all the sexual abuse and all, it still happened. It was still there. None of the bad stuff went away. And I didn't get through it as well as I had in my life, in the vision without God. I didn't get through it very good at all. And pretty soon, and the vision went really fast, but then it kind of slowed down, and it came to this point, and I could feel myself laying on the street in a gutter. One of those gutters where there's a storm drain, so that when it rains, all the runoff has a place to go. And it had been raining. It had been raining a lot, and all this water from the rain was washing over me. And there were leaves that had fallen, and the leaves were falling over me. And I wasn't, I was in a pretty big town, pretty big city, because there were people that were stepping over me as I lay there in that gutter. And I could barely raise my head. And nobody ever stopped. Nobody said anything. It's like I was just annoyingly in their way. And so they just kind of stepped over me and splashed on me and got out of there. But as I looked over at my arm that was kind of laying kind of all, in front of me there, I could see a needle sticking out of it. And I had this knowing, this understanding that I was a prostitute and a drug addict, and I was overdosing, and I was dying, and nobody cared. And then he pulled me out of that vision, and it was like, so that's where I would have been. That would have been my end had I not known God. I still would have gone through all the things I went through in my life. But I would have had to do it without him, and I wouldn't have made it. And in the vision, I had to have been at least 10 years younger than what I was at the time I was having the vision. So my life would have been cut short a lot earlier. And that got my attention. And there's more to that story. But God pulled me out of that pit that day. It was a very intense day. And he turned me around massively, 180 degrees, walking back in the right direction before I got out of that building. Still didn't go forward at any invitation, because believe me, they gave it. Somebody was sitting there crying in the church service. Whatever the preacher was talking about, he hurried up and got done, and then went, to do, 150 verses of just as I am. Yeah, it was a Baptist church. And they're all staring at me, waiting for me to go forward, because they want to hear what's going on. It's been a pretty boring morning. At least maybe I was going to throw some excitement in there. But I never went forward. I just sat there with Jesus. And I didn't even really tell anybody what happened. But I changed massively. And I was no longer depressed. I was joyful. I had a godly sorrow for the sins I had committed. Maybe, in my life, because God was there, I didn't become a prostitute. And I didn't, I've never been a prostitute. I've never been a drug addict. But without him, that would have been who I would have been. Yeah. But I had still committed many sins. And there were more sins that I would commit over the years that would follow that day. But it was never going to be like what it was then. And it truly hasn't been. So, several years later, I was reading in my Bible. I had gotten a New Living Translation Bible, and I came across Lamentations 1:9. Now, first I'm going to read it to you in the NIV. And the NIV and the New American Standard is, I don't have one sitting right here, but I've got my NIV sitting right here. But they're very similar in this. It says in Lamentations 1:9, her filthiness clung to her skirts. She did not consider her future. Her fall was astounding. There was none to comfort her. Look, Lord, on my affliction, for the enemy has triumphed. Okay, so that's the way I was used to reading it. But in the New Living Translation, here's how it says. So this is why it's in my treasure box, is to always remind me of the vision God gave me of who I would have been without him. Lamentations 1:9 in the New Living Translation says, she defiled herself with immorality and gave no thought to her future. Now she lies in the gutter with no one to lift her out. Lord, see my misery, she cries. The enemy has triumphed. I don't know if that touches you like it touched me, but it was like, oh my word, there it is. Absolutely the picture of what the Lord had showed me on January 8th, 1989. Now, I would have read this out of the New Living Translation in maybe 2008. So that's, what's the math? 89. It's almost 20 years later, 19 years later from that vision. Here it is in the New Living Translation, and it's like it was written about me. And so that one went in the treasure box that I never forget. You know, maybe you're going through some stuff and maybe you're feeling really low. Maybe you're thinking that God hasn't done you any good at all. Well, I hope this morning or this afternoon or this evening or whatever time it is when you're watching this, my prayer is that the Lord will touch your heart and show you the difference he's made. See, we still do what we're going to do. We still go through what we're going to go through. But if we had to do it without him, see, that's the difference. I don't want to ever go through anything without him, ever. Yeah, it's hard enough with him. I don't want to do it without him. So this morning I'm thinking about my friends and their heaviness. I'm thinking about my aunt because my uncle passed away. Not, just a few weeks ago. And now after 65 years of marriage, she's all by herself. I mean, she's got her kids, but you know what I mean. Her partner is gone, and she's got to find out who she is now without him, who she is just by herself. There's so much going on. There's so much pain and hurt. And we all have our things that we're going through. But I highly recommend. I can't convince you. I can't change your mind. But I highly recommend that you do it with God, not without him. That whatever it is you face, if I sit here and think, I've got other friends going through things with their kids and their adult kids. Yeah, but what has God gone through? Excuse me. What has he gone through with us? I know I put him through it. Now I just want to please him. Now I want to do the right things. Now I want to do what he wants me to do, and I want to go where he wants me to go, and I don't want to be that rebellious kid anymore. I don't want to go out and throw caution to the wind or try something because I think I'm missing out on it. No. I just want to please him. So Lord, I ask you today for every person that watches this, wherever they're at, whatever they're going through, that if they're doing it with you, that you would encourage them and give them joy in knowing that as they walk through the valley of the shadow of death, that they're not alone, that you're with them. And those that are trying to do it without you, let them see how much they need you, that their lives would be completely changed and transformed by you. Oh, we need Jesus. We need him more than anything. So, Father, Jesus leads us to you, and your Holy Spirit leads us to Jesus so we can be led to you and made right with you. Oh, I pray that your perfect will would be done in each and every one of our hearts today, in this moment, in this hour. And I give the praise and the honor and the glory to you. And in the name of Jesus, I say, amen. And with that, have an awesome day today. And feel free to leave in the comments the greatness of God and what he's doing in your life. And even if you feel that you are so far away from him and you can't get there, but you want to, or maybe you feel that God is ignoring you or whatever, and you just need prayer, put it in the comments. Let me know. Just say, I need your prayer. And I promise I will pray for you for 40 days minimum. And yes, God can change your life. He can turn it around. He can take the worst day of your life and turn it into something so amazing. And that's something only God can do. All right. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to be right here. I hope you'll come back and see me. All right. Love you. Have a great day.